Hello, and it's part four of our LinkedIn overview. Today, well, hopefully this will be the last one. If I go too long in carousels, we will have one more after this. But that's where we're going to start today is the carousel post. So a carousel post is for lack of a better term, a presentation that you upload to Instagram or Instagram to LinkedIn. And from there, users can look through all of the different pieces. It begins here. I just grabbed a screenshot of the bottom of like adding a post, and you can go in. Normally, you just see these first three, and then you see a little plus. If you click the plus sign, this little suitcase, this bar chart, this document, and this little tag badge thing will pop up. And if you hover over the little document, it says add a document. From there, you can upload a file. Now, I believe they recommend a PDF, which you can easily convert from a PowerPoint or anything else. And you can upload it to your post. You can really upload any size that you want. However, the new best practice, I would say 5 years ago when this first started, it was mainly a typical like a 16:9 presentation that you'd normally upload. But today, we have entered the world where you're better off using a general portrait orientation paper size. Not necessarily a 916. That's kind of the a little bit more horizontal, but think of an 8.5 by 11 paper. That portrait orientation is a little bit more standard. Not saying you can't do the others; they all will still work. But in order to take advantage of kind of like how you would see a carousel in a when you're scrolling, the taller it is, the more real estate it takes up on the screen, and also the easier it is for the user to click the next button and look at the other slides. Let me give you an example here. So, if you want to see a great account with that shares all sorts of carousels, SEMrush is maybe the best in terms of brands that use carousels not just intentionally, but also in a more fun way. There's a lot of companies out there that do create carousels that look nice, but they're all very self-serving and they're all just about them, just about the business. You'll see companies that share case studies, companies that share infographics and presentations and ebooks, which are all well and good. But to really get the most out of carousels, you need to share something that actually will make your followers and in the LinkedIn audience at large want to click that little arrow on the right. That takes you to the next slide. Algorithmically, every time that you click to the next slide on a carousel, it counts as an engagement. So you can see how this can quickly help. If you have one person that sees a carousel, they go through all 6 slides, that one person just engaged with your post 6 times. People that get to the last slide are obviously, the people that are most likely interested. But I've also seen this become kind of an engagement bait tactic where people will post like one word per slide and have like a PDF with like 100 pages. That does not work. That I mean, maybe it will, but that's not the best practice if you're focusing on the really the goals, objectives, and metrics as laid out in an earlier video. If your end goal as a company, especially B2B, is to get true leads to business, you want to think of carousels as building thought leadership, building authenticity, and building trust. And you can do that with carousels. You can certainly build brand awareness and brand equity, as SEMrush is doing here, but you don't want to abuse that power that's available. So in this case here with SEMrush, they are promoting an event. And what they were doing is they use carousels pretty well. They use a couple different text sizes. There's a headline, and then they do use little goofy emojis. I don't even know if those are emojis. Those might just be pictures with some text. And then I did highlight the what the next slide's going to look like. or I should say the fifth slide, which is the what you'll get slide. So you can see what another one that's going to be coming up. They do a very good job of taking advantage of white space, not putting too much text, and making it scannable. If you're going to take advantage of the carousel functionality, you need to make sure to also take advantage of the the user interface that is here with that comes along with the carousel. I would argue that this is really important here, because yes, carousels are nice, but you also need to know how to actually create them. Now, carousel content again, that's the challenge. Less text, the better. You can promote your own company stuff. But again, just think about anything that can help build your credibility as a brand. Because if carousels are going to drive a lot of extra engagements for you, you need to make sure that those engagements are done in a meaningful way. Now, having said all of this, I just want to reiterate the need to not be too self-serving in your content, and that is the 4-to-1 rule. The 4-to-1 rule is that for every one post that you create on LinkedIn promoting your own brand, you want to share 4 pieces of content that does not. It could be an image, video, link, text, whatever. You can promote user-generated content, third-party content, articles, data, anything, just not your own stuff. If every post from your company page is just going to promote your own things, why exactly should anybody follow the company? If you're just reiterating things from your website, there's not really a reason to use LinkedIn. I mean, sure, you might find some new people here, but we want to think about social media in general, especially LinkedIn in the B2B space, as a place to nurture and build these connections and potential new leads to business. And to do that, you can't just keep hammering home the same sales tactics that you would anywhere else. You need to meet people where they are, and you need to provide them something that is of value to them. And by posting sales sheets, by posting just random graphics of products and corporate messaging, you're not going to get any further than you would just with a regular ad. So yeah, LinkedIn, got to follow the 4-to-1 rule. Next up, employee engagement. So I used to really harp employee engagement as being really important, especially when it comes to a brand being able to grow on LinkedIn. And that is, to an extent, that's still a piece. But you really want to, you don't want to overdo it. Companies that, there was a time not too long ago that the companies that just got all of their employees on LinkedIn and everybody liked all the posts, those were the companies that grew the fastest because they were getting all these engagements and they were essentially gaming the system, kind of like what he talked about with carousel posts. But today, the algorithm has since made a slight change. If you have too high of a proportion of people who currently work for the company page that they're engaging with, like, comment, and all these other engagements, that becomes a spam signal. So the algorithm has now taken action to counteract employee over-involvement. This is not a statement that you need to avoid having employees engage with posts. However, you just don't want to overdo it. In general, I would argue that the visibility of content still increases when employees engage with company content. But when it is a concentrated, coordinated effort for everybody to like and engage, comment, share all the company content, that is where you're going to see that content visibility increase turn into a very sharp content visibility decrease. The other thing, though, outside of employees, you want to leverage those executives. I think you would be surprised, even if your executives are not super popular on LinkedIn or they aren't on there every day, even the ones who are using LinkedIn from a casual perspective, you may find that they have more connections and followers than your company page does. And that's because these are big names. They have a lot of people following them and wanting to connect with them. And just in general, um, it's this interesting situation where um, people personal pages are always going to be more interesting and get more engagements than company pages. It's just a fact of life. And this is where the larger integrated LinkedIn company strategy needs to come into play. That if you can get, maybe not the CEO, but if you can get some executives to buy in a little bit more on LinkedIn, your company is going to be in a much better position to reach a broader audience, not just with their posts, but also with the company posts. The way that this works is think of it this way. All right. You have let's say for argument's sake, your CEO, someone who's fairly well known in the area, they start posting regularly to LinkedIn, and it's similar. It's a coordinated effort along with the company. Um, the more they post, the more people are going to see their stuff, and the more people that see their stuff is going to get more people onto that executive's profile. That executive, being known as the CEO of that company, of your company, is naturally going to lead to more people engaging with and viewing that company page. Of course, the more people that you see viewing the company page is going to lead to more views and more engagements on your company posts. So, yes, they are very much intertwined. And I would also argue that a company page LinkedIn strategy is strong as it can be. I've had some incredible LinkedIn company page success stories. They all could have been better if the CEO or other executives were more engaged on LinkedIn. Yes, it helps if middle management's there, if some other if there's like that last slide shared, if in general employees are active, that all is nice. It's all well and good. But there's always going to be a couple of people that are at the executive level that have massive followings that can be mobilized with just a handful of posts that can take your company page's success to another level. That is really critical to long-term success on LinkedIn. And it's also critical just to the consistent ability to actually capitalize on LinkedIn's professional networking aura that exists. The more you can get into this, the more they can get people involved, the better you're going to be. Last two slides here that I just wanted to mention. LinkedIn advertising. There are some people that would argue that a LinkedIn company page is really just there for advertising opportunities. I would disagree. I do think that there are opportunities and it can be done well, but it's extremely expensive. These numbers are just kind of shared because I've done it with all the other ones. But man, the average cost per click on LinkedIn is much higher than other social networks. I don't even know what the multiplier is. It's something like 10 times greater. You're looking at multiple dollars per click, and that's because LinkedIn advertising and LinkedIn as a platform, they boast that their data is better than other platforms. Why did they say that? It's because it's all user submitted. When you create an account on LinkedIn, you're submitting all of the information. Problem is, and what I didn't put on this slide, is that I don't think LinkedIn takes into account that some of that user data becomes outdated fairly quickly. For example, a lot of people, like I always am updating my profile. It's regularly a part of my routine. However, people that are not on LinkedIn every day, which is most people, they don't do that. Sure, they're going to change their company and where they work, but they're not going to change their about me. They're not going to change their skills. They're not going to change anything else in their profile unless it's a massive part of who they are. And as a result, you end up with outdated information. So I would argue that LinkedIn advertising is actually not a good investment. And I'm not sure if it's going to actually be as successful. I don't think the opportunity is quite there as it is with the other platforms. Also, the larger companies that use LinkedIn advertising, they use it as just as if it's a television commercial. It's very, what's the word I want to say? Very corporate, very bureaucratic, and boring. If you're going to use LinkedIn advertising, you've got to really lean in to something different, something that stands out. If you just put your brand and a picture of an ebook or like a gradient color background, that's not the stuff that interests people. And that's not the stuff that's going to get a click through. LinkedIn's feed is becoming more and more dynamic every day. It's becoming feeling more and more like a traditional social network where people are, yes, they are usually posting professional stuff and they are, talking about things, the wins and things in business. But they are now doing so in a way that sounds more personal. And businesses that are advertising and still speaking in that very heavy corporate lingo talk, those are the things that are going to get left behind. They're going to get ignored. They're ultimately not going to work in the long term. So, that just about wraps it up. I guess I do have this all sorts of different formats for LinkedIn advertising, which are all great. But again, it's all based on what you make of it. And that's kind of LinkedIn in a nutshell is the ability to not don't just use LinkedIn as corporate boilerplate. It's got to be a way to communicate your brand in a new way that can lean a little bit more professional than the other networks because it's reaching more of a professional audience and that's why they're there. But don't get caught up in the suit and tie and fancy major company company lines because it's still a social network. People are not here to be sold a bill of goods. They are here to connect, to apply for jobs, to learn about an industry, to learn about things in their own daily life, and it all has a business twist to it, which is great for companies. But if your brand is going to succeed, and if you personally are going to succeed, it requires some regular work, some interesting, some what maybe not interesting is the word. So taking some risks and creating some new types of content, and trying to engage with professionals on a level that you would not be able to connect with them otherwise on other social networks. So that wraps up LinkedIn here. You're please be sure to look at some of the other playlists that I've put up here. I've alluded to a lot of them here throughout this 4-part series. And yeah, that will do it for me.